Hi, I'm Patrick Allen. I, along with my wife, own Patrick Allen Selections, a small importing company dedicating to working with small artisan producers, primarily from the south of France. In our portfolio, we also work with one cider producer. It's Manoir du Kinkiz. Manoir du Kinkiz is located in Brittany, which is a peninsula that sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean. Most cider that you get in the United States from France comes from Normandy, which is a much larger area. Brittany is a smaller growing region, and very little of it is imported in the United States. Probably counting among the best known cider producers or best producers of cider in France would be Manoir du Kinkiz. It's a small estate located outside the town of Quimper. The owner, Hervé Seznac, is the only person authorized to train new cider producers how to make cider in the entire appellation. So today we have here two ciders from Manoir du Kinkiz. They're Cider de Fouenan and their Cuvée Blanche. The Cider de Fouenan is made from 35 ancient varietals of apple that are only grown for cider making. You wouldn't want to eat these, they're not like table apples at all. Some of the apples are grown to add sugar to the blend, some are grown to add tannins, some are grown to add acidity. So in cider making, or fine cider making, one of the unique things is they don't pick the apples. When the apples are still on the tree, they're not ripe yet. So they wait for the apples to fall to the ground. Then they're still not even ripe. So they go through the orchards. They check to see when the apples are, the tannins are ripe, the acidities are ripe, the sugars are ripe. When they feel that the apples are ripe on the ground, they gather them, blend them, and start the cider making process. Now, something that's unique to cider apples is a process called keeving. So what they do is they take the apples into the cidery, they crush up the apples, put them in tank, the solids float to the top of the tank, and then something that's particular to cider apples is that as pectin forms, it clarifies the juice. They pull that juice out of the tank and then put it back into bottle, and then they re-ferment the wine or the cider in bottle just as you would champagne. So that's a process that you can't achieve with just using table apples. So in the United States, for example, there are very few cider apples left. So most of the cider that we get in the United States is produced either with table apples, there are some people that are using cider apples, or in worst case scenarios, they're using apple juice concentrate, then they are adding alcohol, then carbonating it, and making a quick version of apple cider. But for most people who are cider aficionados, this isn't a true cider. The other cider that we have is a very rare cider from Manoir du Kinkiz. So in most cases, a single apple won't produce or won't have the qualities it takes to make a complete cider. Well, there's the varietal Guelvic, which is what they use to make this Cuvée Blanche, is one of the only apples that they grow that can produce all the things you need to make a great cider. So the pale of the Guelvic apple, the flesh of the Guelvic apple is very pale, so it produces this pale, light, delicate cider. They call it the champagne of Brittany. So one of the things that fascinates me about these two ciders is they're radically different, but they're produced in exactly the same manner. For example, this Fouenan is very funky. You get wild barnyard aromas, very appley. If you've ever walked through an apple orchard in the fall where apples have fallen on the ground, you get that autumnal odors of apples decaying. That's what this cider smells like and tastes like. This, however, even though it's made in precisely the same way, because of the apple that they're using, it's very light and ephemeral and very delicate and perfumed. So these two ciders, though they are produced in exactly the same way, are radically different. So this is traditionally drunk at Christmas time for celebrations, while this they serve with pork dishes, with crêpes, and other traditional Breton fare. So the other important thing to mention about Manoir du Kinkiz is, though they're not certified organic, they use no herbicides, no pesticides. They grow grass in their orchards, so the orchards where these apples are grown are absolutely beautiful and pristine. And they have a great respect for nature, and that comes out in their cider.